We are the people， 老百姓。We gonna bury you， CCP。
各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇每日滅共新聞。我哋係消滅邪惡中國共產黨嘅新中國人。今日係2024年1月6號星期一，而家係美東時間晚上11點。我係 Johnny，
我係 Karen。習近平為鞏固其獨裁統治，近年嚟採取咗更為高壓嘅手段，清洗運動喺中共內部引起咗嚴重混亂同恐慌。同時，中共國經濟越發衰敗，人口減少，貨幣貶值，外資撤離，房地產泡沫破裂，債務膨脹以及消費萎縮嘅惡性循環，正在摧毀中共國整體經濟嘅發展。請睇報道。
習近平政權崩潰危機之內憂泛濫。習近平為鞏固其獨裁統治，近年來採取了更為高壓的手段，力圖將自己塑造為中國歷史命運的締造者。然而，他以打擊腐敗為名的清洗運動卻在黨內、軍隊和私營部門引發了嚴重混亂與恐慌，事與願違的效果正加速將其反噬。僅在2024年，就有超過80名企業高管因所謂嚴重違紀被拘留，而軍隊高層也頻繁遭免職和調查。海軍上將苗華以及前國防部長李尚福的罷免，進一步暴露了黨內的腐敗和動盪。這些行動雖暫時鞏固了習近平對權力的全面控制，卻嚴重打擊了企業創新活力，加劇了公眾對國家政治的恐懼，導致各領域陷入停滯。與此同時，中國經濟愈加衰敗，人口減少、貨幣貶值、外資撤離以及房地產泡沫破裂等危機撕碎了中共以繁榮換服從的社會契約，而債務膨脹和消費萎縮的惡性循環正在摧毀整體經濟的發展。面對內憂泛濫，習近平仍然將問題歸咎於外部壓力，尤其是西方圍堵，目的是為其愈發擴張的壓制政策辯護，包括修建數百座法外拘留設施，強化社會控制和鎮壓意義。在其統治邏輯中，問題並非在體制內部，而是黨內對其願景的忠誠度不足。如今，過度集權和對異己的鎮壓非但未能緩解危機，反而暴露出習近平的內需恐懼以及絞肉機體制內的深層鬥爭。實際上，這種陰狠的殺伐手段已嚴重動搖了習近平皇權統治的根基。
近日有媒體揭露美國大學同中共進行國防專案，有合作關係。加州大學柏克利分校同喬治亞州工學院接受咗嚟自中共嘅資金，令中共通過呢啲聯合防務專案獲得有關科學、技術、工程及數學等方面知識嘅戰略技術研究，其中好多都有軍事用途，可以俾中共軍方喺發生衝突時用嚟對付美國嘅技術。美國國會嘅一項調查發現，呢啲美中大學合作研究所以及類似專案，為美國向中共轉移關鍵技術同專業知識提供咗服務渠道，包括同中共國防體系相關嘅實體。請睇相關新聞。
We looked at top public universities and we found that UC Berkeley and Georgia Tech are getting money from China, essentially in exchange for STEM knowledge gained through these joint defense projects. So these are strategic technology research. Much of it has military applications, the kind of technology that the Chinese military could use against the United States in the event of conflict. So both UC Berkeley and Georgia Tech have Shenzhen institutes, which partner with a Chinese Tsinghua University. An investigation by Congress just in September found that these institutes and similar programs, they say, quote, serve as conduits for transferring critical U.S. technology and expertise to China, including entities linked to China's defense machine. And so you just reported that there was a breach, a hack of the US Treasury by the Chinese. So this is sort of the last thing we should be doing, is partnering with the country that we believe is hacking us. And we believe this is the tip of the iceberg, that there are other universities that have similar Chinese partnerships.
So what are these universities getting out of this? Is this simply a money thing?
Yeah, they're working. I mean, you know, the people that they're working with, these institutes have well-trained and educated individuals in their fields. For institute, there's another institute, Georgia Tech partnered with Tianjin International Center for Nanoparticles and Nanosystems. So these are very smart people working on, in that case, a semiconductor. Yeah. So not only are they getting knowledge out of this, and, you know, U.S. institutions necessarily maybe getting, you know, knowledge out of this from this research, but they're also getting a lot of money. So for money specifically, UC Berkeley, we saw got $87 million and Georgia Tech got $32 million. However, this congressional committee that looked into this found that these institutions are not reporting this. They're supposed to be reporting all of the money they get from foreign entities, and they're not. The House investigation found significant failures in reporting foreign funding. And they said that it's likely hundreds of millions, if not billions, in Chinese gifts sent to all American universities.
Well, how are they getting around reporting this money then?
Yeah, so this is the Higher Education Act requires that universities report funds from foreign countries. But sort of these joint projects can get organized as separate legal entities, it looks like. And so they're able to get around it for a minute until they're found out.
美國退役陸軍上將傑克基恩近日提出警告話，中共可能正在進行自20世紀30年代納粹德國以嚟最大規模嘅軍事集結，會對美國造成嚴重嘅軍事威脅。請睇詳細新聞。
There is a new warning that China may be conducting the largest military buildup since that of the Nazi Germany during the 1930s. Is this in response to Donald Trump's second term, or are we reading too much into this?
No, this has been going on for 10 years. This is not news.
Yeah.
I was on a congressional commission that looked at our national defense strategy, Trump-Mathis, and we identified it then. And that was way back in 2018, and it had been going on for years. This is the most rapid buildup in history that's taken place by the Chinese. And listen, the United States remains the world's #1 military superpower. Why is that? Because we can project power all over the world, and the American people have seen us do that. But here's the catch.
Yeah.
When we get in about 1,000 miles of the Chinese coast, the military advantage swings decisively to China. You name the platform, and they outnumber us. And the quality of their platforms is quickly catching, if not surpassing. I'm talking about ships, airplanes, offensive missiles, defensive missiles. The one advantage we have is in submarines. And they are certainly on the move there as well. So, yes, this is, as you indicated, the most rapid military buildup in history.
美國退役上校約翰米爾斯作客班農戰鬥室節目時表示，韓國總統尹錫悅目前正進行着一場生死搏鬥，佢實際上喺度對抗一場共產主義辯證。韓國而家發生嘅大部分事情都係因為中共嘅惡意影響，中共企圖顛覆韓國， 將其置於中共嘅控制底下。請睇新聞。
President Yoon, they are in the fight of their lives right now against essentially a communist coup. Most of these on legacy media, when you see these protests against martial law, 1/3 to 2/3 of those are actually Chinese that have been flown in. This is absolutely crazy. Let's go to this first slide here to explain the lineup of what's going on, please. Here we go, Denver. There we go. So on your left, that's Lee, the leader of the Democratic Party. He's left wing. He's actually pro-China. He calls the U.S. an occupation force. He says, and now he was just convicted of malfeasance. This is why you're seeing everything going on. He was convicted of malfeasance, and that means he potentially can't even run for president, which he wants the presidency. He's a hardcore left-winger, pro-China. He wants U.S. forces out, calls us an occupation force, wants the THAAD missiles out, and works very closely. Now, to the right, that first green oval, that's President Yoon. He declared martial law on December 3rd and 4th. Well, why was that? Now, martial law has a very bad history and background in South Korea, so everybody's gut reaction was, okay, this is bad. And it was in many ways bad, but he did that strategically so that he could launch a raid on the National Election Commission to seize evidence of actually Chinese election interference. That was the whole reason, because legally that's the only way he could do it, to raid the National Election Commission. So this is the fight of their lives, and this is potentially buckles the whole right wing of the deterrence against China, and that's exactly why. So also, Yoon is actually really building bridges with Japan. There's a lot of hard feelings still from the Second World War. Totally understand that. That's not totally resolved, but he's reaching out to Japan. However, Lee is extremely anti-Japan and wants to break up that alliance. That's also what China is concerned about. So most of what's going on right now, this is a Chinese malign influence attempting to topple South Korea and really make it a enclave of China.
班農先生談到中共對美國財政部嘅網絡攻擊時表示，呢個係網絡戰爭行為。而且中共從美國南部邊境偷渡進入咗大量嘅中共軍人戰鬥組織。請睇詳細內容。
This is why I say that they're better. When people say, "Well, you got to respond to this," I said they're already at war with us. The cyber attack, what Ava's talking about, the cyber attack on Treasury is the worst cyber attack we've ever had. The Treasury Department, and I say that this is an act of cyber war. They are aggressively, these cyber attacks are going on in that kind of if you look at the southern border, people will tell you. They're fighting. Now, some of these are true dissidents trying to escape the CCP. There's no doubt about that. But there is a large bulk of kind of fighting age males. And, of course, the CIA officer gave the interview the other day. She said there's 1,000 cells of ISIS.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'd like to know how many cells of Chinese Communist Party fighting age males.
愛滋病專家大衛拉斯尼克博士曾喺2022年揭露新冠疫情同上世紀80-90年代發生嘅愛滋病事件模式相同，並且福奇都參與其中。兩單事件喺大話模式、引入有毒治療方案、壓制唔同聲音等方面都極其相似，可以話愛滋病就係為新冠做準備。請睇詳細內容。
So clearly there are parallels. Is that right, Dave, between what happened with AIDS and what's happening with SARS-CoV-2 and COVID?
I mean, it's uncanny. The only things that really distinguish one from the other one is AIDS was basically restricted to gay men and IV drug users, and it was a localized thing. It wasn't global. And then you have the COVID thing, which is a different virus, okay, but now it's global. And then you had Anthony Fauci behind both of these things. And it's basically the size, but all of the lying was very similar, lies from the very beginning, bogus tests for bogus viruses in both cases. Those are very similar there. Oh, that's a good slide. Yeah. And they in 84, they defined drug diseases were redefined as viral, as AIDS. And then you had a lab, 1993 lab test turned non-diseases into AIDS. And then with 2020, we have Anthony Fauci again involved, and we have RNA fragments are defined as COVID-19, but there's no SARS-CoV-2 anywhere as we've been talking about it. And there was a PCR test for turns the flu into COVID-19 because the CDC's the symptoms of COVID-19 and the flu are virtually identical. I think they specified, you might have you might not be able to smell properly or taste. I forget which one it was. If you have COVID-19, things like that. Then there's AZT, was a very toxic, deadly drug that Anthony Fauci brought on the scene in the late 80s. And now you have remdesivir. He brought remdesivir, another very toxic and deadly drug to treat SARS-CoV-2 with. There were no clinical trials done with the ARVs. There's no studies, no finished clinical trials with SARS-CoV-2. There's no studies that show that any vaccines work or any of the drugs work in either case. And the drugs are causing horrendous problems. There are far more many people that were injured and killed by the anti-HIV drugs that ever died from so-called AIDS. And the same thing is true with COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2. And you had the advertising. Look at the advertising. It hides the adverse reactions in both the AIDS drugs and also the SARS-CoV-2 drugs, and the testing were inadequate. You could have disease-free cases of AIDS, disease-free cases of COVID-19. They're based on the PCR test. That's it. The similarities there, data manipulation. The total clampdown of any debate or any arguments. They're absolutely, the game plan is identical to what it was in the 80s and 90s. In fact, the whole infrastructure that is behind what's going on in the world right now was put into place in the 80s and 90s, with the AIDS stuff. It was just a practice for what's going on now.
倫敦大學聖喬治學院腫瘤學教授安格斯達爾格利什表示，新冠 mRNA 疫苗有10種方式誘發癌症，其中有2-3種特別可怕。一種係疫苗污染問題，例如輝瑞疫苗裡面有致癌基因刺激物猿猴病毒40。第二種係刺突蛋白同 mRNA 疫苗會同 P53、BRCA、MSH 等主要抑癌基因相結合。毫無疑問，而家就必須禁止呢啲疫苗。請睇詳細報導。
But the messenger RNA vaccines that we have with the spike protein, that in those 10 ways that it can induce cancer, I mean, there's 2 or 3 which are really frightening. One, which has been widely discussed with the contamination issue, is that there are some oncogene stimulants there, SV40. Is in the Pfizer, we know that. And I have a list of people here who have been discussed in the Perth conference recently, of all the people who have shown the contamination, from McKernan in the US, David Spryker, Koenig Rao, Philip Backholz, etc. And there's another paper just come out from Würzburg that not only confirms all this, but shows that they will convert cells to cancers. So we know that that's a direct thing. The second thing, which I really want to emphasize, is the spike protein alone and messenger RNA vaccines will bind to the major suppressor genes. Now, the suppressor genes are basically your cancer policemen. If you do get cancer, they will suppress it. P53, BRCA, MSH. MSH is well associated with a thing called Lynch syndrome and colorectal cancer, which is very relevant to the fact we're getting an explosion of colorectal cancers at the moment. So what happens if you have a mutation in any of those 3 major suppressor genes, you're just unfortunate to be born with it, it means the cancer you would normally get when you were 70 or 80 you're going to get with your 20, 30 or 40. By putting this into children, we run the serious risk that we're going to make everybody have the equivalent of mutations in these genes. And it's absolutely horrendous. The very fact that that's a possibility and we're using them for an infectious disease that doesn't kill anybody should strike fear into the heart of all of us. And I believe leaves no doubt at all that these vaccines must be banned now, and anybody who opposes it, anybody who says there's reason for it, has to be held to account for what not only has happened, but what is going to happen in the future if we persist with this. Thank you very much for listening.
We are the people, 老百姓 We gonna bury you, CCP。
跟住落嚟係一組每日新聞簡報。美國猶他州提起訴訟，指控 TikTok 明知其直播功能涉及性內容，誤導未成年人，並助長洗錢同毒品銷售。此案引發對社交媒體用戶安全嘅廣泛關注，並加劇咗對相關法律責任及保護措施嘅討論。
馬修米勒表示，美國正在制裁總部位於北京嘅網絡安全公司永信智誠科技集團，因其參與電腦入侵事件。此前，美國通過法院授權嘅行動，成功瓦解咗一個由美國及全球數十萬台消費者設備組成嘅殭屍網絡。
美國商務部表示，出於國家安全考慮，正在考慮制定限制甚至禁止喺美國銷售中共國製造無人機嘅新規則。
中共國地方政府2024年舉債規模達9.8萬億元人民幣，創下歷史新高。其中61%嘅舉債資金用於借新還舊。
每日郵報報導，中共國正遭遇一種新型惡性疾病，一啲醫院已經不堪重負。視頻顯示，成人病房同兒科病房嘅候診室逼滿咗人。嚟自中共國嘅少量新聞及社交媒體報導警告咗一種鮮為人知嘅病毒 HMPV 人偏肺病毒，但衛生當局尚未正式宣布該病毒。我哋重申，中國共產黨係全世界災難嘅根源，只有消滅中國共產黨先至能夠拯救全人類。感謝大家收睇每日滅共新聞，我哋下次再會。
毕业于985的重庆大学，1年过去了，我还是没有找到一份像样的工作。
中国的社会的失业、崩盘、断供，
社区给我打电话，让我快点就业。
共产党在死亡前没那么容易死，共产党一定会很疯狂。
能不能把好运来关了？能。
几千个家庭都在等着你了。
我领导跟我说不发工资了。
33岁，我俩都失业了。
失业了。
南京29所公私立的幼儿园都关园，
总人口数2年都在下降。
中国经济什么样了？你不知道。
深圳很多实体和企业都在面临着倒闭。
这2年，大量的外资企业撤离中国。
中国有40家的小银行消失，被大银行合并或解散。
因为无法提款了，遭到了挤兑，这意味着江西银行呢基本上是爆雷了。
中直系现在爆雷了。
我跟你们说说，学校都给我们吃到了些什么？
整盆肉都是臭的，这是丧尽天良的人肉。
学生们也抱怨吃的都是僵尸肉和预制菜。
这就是无底店学校啊，给孩子吃狗食桶里的菜。
油罐车混运煤制油和食用油，并且之间呢没有冲洗清洁。这样的报道一出，引发了一片哗然。
所有的天灾到了中国以后，都变成人祸。
洞庭湖呢，它叫团州乡的这个院堤啊，7月5号呢发生了决堤。
更让人民愤怒的是，你堵不住堤防破口，政府就堵你的嘴。
我只能祈祷别下雨了。
湖南、河南海的善后，重庆又成重灾区。
湖北丹江口汽车全灭顶，河南的周口、南阳等地达到特大暴雨等级。
哇！一台车疯狂地撞上来呀！
在9月18日，一名10岁的日本男孩遭到一个男子的持刀袭击。
我们的很多人就是长期在这种仇恨教育之下，
导致这种恶果。自我革命，
自我革命，
把党的伟大自我革命进行到底。
自我革命就是文化大革命，走着看啊，这个事儿太大了。
2024年4月19日，信息支援部队成立大会在北京8·1大楼隆重举行。
保守国家秘密法修订通过，李尚福开除党籍处分，
决定对苗华停职检查。
猎狐2022专项行动加大反洗钱力度。
14部门近日发布了关于促进人体器官捐献工作健康发展意见。
各位嘉賓、各位市民，
香港通過了23條的立法草案。
美國眾院外委會通過香港經濟貿易辦事處認證法案。
破產管理處公佈上個月提交個人破產呈請宗數係5個月以嚟最高。
2024-25財政年度嘅綜合赤字係1000億元左右。
西九龍法院呢，在今天對4·7人顛覆案作出判決，
廉潔奉公，竭誠為澳門特別行政區服務。
共產黨在死亡前沒那麼容易死亡，共產黨一定會很瘋狂。
感謝台灣人民共同寫下了民主的新頁。
So you think you can trust them?
前总统马英九访中行来到陕西，
重现世纪之握马习2会10号下午4点在北京人民大会堂东大厅登场。马英九办公室举办两岸交流。
这是我第3次到中国大陆访问。
柯文哲日前遭北检第10度提讯，有人可能透过台积电替中国科技大厂华为生产 AI 晶片。 云见9艘公务船现踪周遭海空域。
中华民国与中华人民共和国互不隶属。
자유헌정질서를지키기위해 비상계엄을 선포합니다.
再来带您关心日本新任首相石破茂推动成立亚洲北约。
最高领导人金正恩在15号在会议上，他呼吁要修改宪法，要把南韩列为是头号敌对国。
这是一个金砖国家“一带一路”和邪恶轴心5国，是中国共产党安排的。
两国首脑共同签署了升级两国关系的全面战略伙伴关系条约。
有超过1万名朝鲜士兵在俄罗斯境内协助俄罗斯攻打乌克兰。
Першими боями з північно-корейськими солдатами。
伊朗总统莱西5月19号在伊朗西北部山区发生空难。
阿萨德铁腕统治宣告终结，叙利亚举国欢庆。
Our fight is your fight, and our victory will be your victory。
全天候。 中非命运共同体。
习近平将于10月22号至24号赴俄罗斯喀山出席金砖国家领导人第16次会晤。
整个是对抗西方、美国、欧洲，掐住欧洲的气和石油，干掉美国的美元，让美国物价经济混乱，配合3F 方案的一大块。
或骇客组织沿台风来窃取通话资料。
赵安吉死亡的消息由财新网在13日率先报道。
美国新泽西州最近 被神秘无人机事件困扰。
Thousands of Navy SEALs and service members impacted by the COVID vaccine mandate, scoring a major win this week in court following a years-long legal battle.
The AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is being withdrawn worldwide after the pharmaceutical giant admitted it causes a rare and dangerous side effect.
Today, Kansas is filing a civil suit against the Pfizer Corporation under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act.
This is a state suing Pfizer.
The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people.
Peter Navarro to 4 months behind bars for defying a congressional subpoena from
Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, the entire Justice Department. They're not going to shut up Trump. They're not going to shut up Navarro. They're not going to shut up Bannon.
We will never back down, and we will never, ever, ever, ever surrender.
That Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
Take down the CCP. I gotta get Miles a song. Take down the CCP. Take down the CCP.
现在的武汉疫情就是一场战争，这场战争就是共产党打响了共产党的盗国贼和14亿中国人民的战争，然后用14亿人民在挑战美国的战争。
这个东西绝对是来自武汉实验室。
Wuhan, because Wuhan. I mean, the one lab that we're interested in here is Wuhan.
The CCP,
Chinese Communist Party, they believe they've gotten away with it, but inaction incentivizes the CCP to persist in secretive, aggressive, and dangerous behavior.
I'm not talking about the process.
I don't know.
Does it concern you that that U.S. taxpayer dollars would be going to someone who's a high-ranking Chinese PLA official? Yes or no?
So this is why CCP #1 take responsibility, give Chinese, give the America, give the West of the world, is the truth, transparency, information. Stop this rallies, go to all the global, kill all the American, all the another country people. This is the #1 reporting.
There can be, in our view, little doubt that China's government is primarily responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic.
That the Chinese Communist Party was conducting dangerous research, and this type of dangerous research was notionally supported by the NIH. I ask unanimous consent for a 2005 statement from the State Department that says China has a bioweapons program. Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent for a 2015 article by Dr. Ralph Barrick and Dr. Zhengli Shi of China, where they created a chimera of 2 bat-borne coronaviruses that gained function. Without objection, so ordered.
一系列的立法都在酝酿中，都会一个又一个的出来，老天爷都挡不住的。
Some bills. Number 1, the Joint Task Force to Counter Illicit Synthetic Narcotics. Number 2, the CCP fentanyl sanctions. And then thirdly, the international protection from PRC fentanyl.
The Biosecure Act will help ensure the biological data of American patients.
The Science and Technology Agreement Enhanced Congressional Notification Act.
The Russian Federation has become reliant on the People's Republic of China for a supply of semiconductors and other critical dual-use technologies.
The Countering CCP Drones Act.
Grown to be our greatest geopolitical threat.
That 2 CCP-aligned battery makers, Goshen and CATL, Cattle, are deeply connected to forced labor and the ongoing genocide in China.
On H.R. 55 for the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act.